whatever you wind up doing is exactly what you should be doing.
And I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're going to hurt some people. Whose car are we going to take?
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show. I apologize for the mislabeling of the time. We are always on at 9 o'clock. I don't know why I said 8 o'clock.
Oh, you said 8? Oh.
I guess when I set up the whole system, I had hit 8 instead of 9. That's what you guys have to know. Sometimes I'm just out of my mind. That's it. So it's always at 9. It's never at 8. That is way too early. I was driving my kids to school. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show. Kim and myself will be continuing a conversation we had just moments ago regarding school. I'm going to tease it a little bit, Kim.
Okay.
I'm going to tease it just a little bit before we get to your headlines because there's a ton of stuff in the news that Kim's covering. But here's the question. Did you ever hang out with a crew that wasn't necessarily doing everything good and was able to avoid it? And I will ask it in this way. Did you hang out with smokers and never smoke? Did you hang out with stoners and never smoke weed?
Never stone.
Never stone. Did you ever hang out with people that were drinking underage and not drink underage? Is it possible to be that odd man out and still regularly hang out with a group of people? So that's the question I want you guys to ponder as Kim does her news. We will have Loretta Lynch coming on with us in about a half an hour. There's a ton of PG&E news. So I got her at 9:30. We might carry it on a little bit over, but I love Loretta Lynch. She brings such insight to all the stories having to do with PG&E. And the first question I want to ask her is about burying these lines. When you take a look at what's happened, obviously here in California, but also what happened in Maui, right? It obviously looks like the winds caused a sparking, which ended up causing a wildfire, which destroyed an entire town. And the death toll tragically is going to skyrocket as they continue with this recovery. And so people are saying, bury the lines, bury the lines, bury the lines. Is there a better way? Should we be insulating these lines instead? Because it is going to cost you, it's going to cost me, it's going to cost all Californians a buttload of money to do this. So I want to get Loretta Lynch's take on this, plus so many other things, blackouts, solar. So that's coming up in about a half an hour. Kim will be obviously following everything having to do with the debate tonight. How many of you are going to be watching it? Trump's not going to be here or at the debate, but he will be in Georgia tomorrow. So we'll be keeping an eye on all of that. All right, let's get the business out of the way, my friends, and click that thumbs up button to show your support of the show. YouTube, when you click, if you guys wonder why I keep reminding you to do this, when you click the thumbs up.
Because how annoying are we, right?
I know. It makes us a suggestion because it shows YouTube, people are watching and liking the show. This is why we do it. I'm sure it's a way more complicated than that, but that's what I understand, is that if you click the thumbs up each and every show, then this show grows on YouTube as far as a suggestion. And so we want that to happen. And so just click the thumbs up button and make it a habit. The super chat, of course, is live. And of course, Harry gives us a happy hump day with a $5 donation. And I give you, Harry, a big kiss. So thank you.
Isn't that lovely? Like just a little morning positive thing to kick us off.
Exactly.
Harry,
and it shows us that you love us, Harry. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you. So be like Harry. If you want to donate during the show, we'll give you a shout out if you do it live. Also, we'll read your comment live on the show if you want to do it that way. You just get a bunch of love from myself and from Kim. If you donate to the super chat live, you can still donate during the replay. And we appreciate that so very much. And also, there is another way for you to support the show, of course, and that is to become a Medorable. And it's simple. You just go to thenikkimedoroshow.com, click the Patreon link, and you can sign up for any amount you want to. We do not set bars of a financial donation on our Patreon. I know other people do. I do not. It's hard enough for me asking for money every single show.
I know. It's so weird.
Really difficult for me. It's hard, right, Kim?
I feel like I'm. Oh my God! I make John Daly do it. he's like, okay. Right? I do. I'm like, I can't. I feel
And
so.
she's talking about on the after party live, which is from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
So here's what I feel like, the old days of radio with you and I in the studio. And I was so grateful to have people turn us on and spend their morning with us. That you're here right now watching the show. That's a gift to me. That you would spend your time with us, honestly, from my heart to yours. That's my gift. Then to have to ask you on top of that to like support the show. And it's like, I just feel so bad. I know we can't do it, and it's one of these new realities.
To do it. Yeah,
I know, but I just feel, and then I know there's some people who can't, and so then do we make them feel bad every time we say it?
No, we ask you for the thumbs up button.
I have
issues. What we ask for. Yeah, I had issues. But that's also why we want to give back. Again, I've been kind of teasing this, and I'm still working on the box. But we're gonna do a raffle giveaway, and this box is going to be some of my favorite things. And maybe even not just my favorite things, cool things that I see maybe online or that I shop. I'm trying to do it like I always want to do for Christmas and I blow it. My favorite thing to maybe eat, I'm working on a recipe book. My favorite thing to eat, read, maybe wear, something like that. I'm trying to do that for Christmas. And so the box will be filled with some great things that I like or that I use. And I want to give that away as a raffle, which would of course raise money for the show. So something fun.
Can I participate? Because I think I might want the box full of good stuff.
You know what? I'll just give you the list. My friend.
I'm just saying, like, can you do a double? I'll just buy the other one. Is that okay?
I guess you could. Maybe I'll make it a box and I'll give it away as a raffle, and then maybe I'll figure out how much it all costs and we can sell
nothing
it. Nothing
spicy in mine. Just nothing spicy.
Oh, well, damn it. I was totally going to do something. I'm a little on the naughty side, people. I don't know about sex toys. I'm not going that naughty, but I already have one thing that's a little foul-mouthed, but if anybody knows me, that's what I am. But anyways, that's coming up next month. So I'm working on the box. We'll be doing a raffle giveaway, and all the money raised goes to the show. And so that's another way of helping support the show is to buy those raffle tickets. But please become become a monthly Patreon subscriber by going to thenikkimedoroshow.com. Our PayPal link is there with my email, thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com. And of course, the merch shop, thenikkimedoroshop.com. All right. So again, and let's give a big thank you to Mary with a $10 super sticker. We talk about it and you guys step up. That is what I love about our community. Mary, Harry, thank you guys for starting us off. It's
Mary
very,
and
very
Harry.
generous. Mary and Harry. Okay. So mull it over. You let me know if the crew that you hang out with, if they're doing something not really correct. Now, let's keep it high schoolish. Let's keep it like underage drinking and smoking pot. I guess I could even say popping pills, but then we start getting into the dangerous fentanyl conversation that we had yesterday. But my question is, could your crew do something and you not do it? Can your crew smoke cigarettes and you not smoke cigarettes? I have one story that I always think of when this question comes up, and Kim will also be weighing in on this. But first, we got to get the headlines out of the way. It is a big news day, and here's Kim.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Yes, 'tis Wednesday on the Nikki Medoro Show. I'm Kim McAllister, and today, it's the day I've been waiting for. Yes, it is. Former President Trump is likely to receive a mugshot upon surrendering at the Fulton County Jail. Have I approached the story with a little too much glee?
But this is not happening. This is not today. Sorry. This is tomorrow.
This is on Friday. He's going to surrender tomorrow. But
tonight he's doing the avoidance. That's what Trump's doing tonight.
I think tonight his Tucker Carlson interview will air. I'm just excited that we're going to have a mugshot. See, and that's just me dancing on someone else's misery. So part of me feels bad, like karmically, that I'm this gleeful, but part of me is like, I just can't tamp down the joy. I can't.
No, I love it because you'll have another picture in your arsenal to throw up on the screen every time you have a Trump story. And I vote that one should lead the pack if it's a really good picture. Yeah. I really hope we get the picture because I know that Georgia has its own rules versus the other places that the guys had to have his fingerprints, that because he's so well known, that's why they don't take a mugshot. It's like, we don't need a mugshot. We don't need to
know what he looks like. Yeah.
No, I want it. I want it. We also knew who Marilyn,
fingerprints.
Yeah.
Booking thing.
Right. Charles Manson. We have his picture.
We know what he looks like.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to have that picture.
Martha Stewart. We knew what she looked like.
what's her name? Paris Hilton. We got a mugshot of her. We got a mugshot to all these celebrities, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we get one of him? Please, please, please.
Please, indeed. And I think it's coming to us.
Yay!
It's like a little gift in the middle of August. Trump is expected to turn himself in tomorrow, as Nikki mentioned. The former president and 18 others, of course, charged last week in connection with efforts to overturn Georgia's 2020 election results. The co-defendants have until the end of the week to surrender. One person who doesn't want to surrender, he's trying to get out of it. Mark Meadows. He is trying to get his voluntary surrender deadline extended in order to allow a court to first rule on his motion to get the case moved to federal court. He doesn't want to go to Georgia. He's a little scared of what Georgia has in store. He wants this to be a federal matter.
Absolutely.
But Fannie Willis says, nope, I am not extending your deadline. You get your ass to Georgia. Turn yourself in and smile pretty for the picture. That's what's going to happen.
I think Rudy's turning himself in today, or has already.
Rudy, yeah.
Rudy. Turn your ass in. Turn your ass in. There you go.
We're going straight to hell. I'm sure that's what's going to happen.
We are not at all. No, thank you.
No.
Okay,
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy will stand center stage during tonight's presidential debate in Milwaukee. While DeSantis is considered to be the strongest candidate to challenge the party's frontrunner, Donald Trump, recent polls have shown Ramaswamy edging ever closer to DeSantis for the number 2 spot. Trump, of course, plans to skip the debate. A pre-recorded interview with Tucker Carlson may air instead as he tries to compete with what's going on the debate stage. One person who may not be at the debate was Doug Burgum. He was, I think he's the governor of North Dakota? Yeah, governor of North Dakota. He hurt his leg after plowing, I guess, I don't know. He hurt his leg.
It was like a basketball game, wasn't he? He was playing with his staff or something.
He was playing basketball, and they say he might miss tonight's debate.
Well, the fact that we don't even know where he's from, I'm sure he's like at the
North
where he
Dakota.
bought. Obviously, he's has met the threshold, so that's good. And I don't want to. And again, I shouldn't even say it like that because it's wrong. Because Trump has sucked so much, of the numbers, but I don't think he's qualified. So we do need to start looking at some of these other candidates. Right. Ramaswamy. I mean, he's like a 9/11 truther type of person. So I mean, can we just get somebody sane? Please, I want a sane.
I think you're asking a lot.
Debate. I know.
I think you're asking a lot. But as far as the impeachment inquiry, the impeachment inquiry into President Biden, I should say, they could start this next month. Of course, they would start it right before the election as well, right? It's all timing. That, according to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Speaking today, McCarthy said it depends on whether the Biden administration turns over documents, although the extent of the documents requested by Republicans is unclear. This becomes political, Of
course it does. I mean, they're really just trying to distract from all of the cases against former President Trump. And again, look, if you have a case, fine. But it just reeks of distraction and all sorts of stuff. I'm over it. You know what the truth of the matter is? I don't think they have a leg to stand on with impeachment. I just don't. But they are allowed to go through the process if they want to. So there we go.
But it just it looks desperate.
It is. Well, they are desperate. They don't have any candidate. They don't. They have a guy that has like indictments up the ass, right?
Yeah.
A criminal. That's a convicted criminal. And then who? Just I don't like this guy. Ramaswamy is a truther. I mean, it's a bag of nuts up there. I don't know. I'm excited to see Chris Christie. I'm excited to see what he's going to do. And I will go on record and say this, even though I don't agree with the platform, I'm excited to hear what Asa Hutchinson, all these people actually say, because I do think they're trying to talk about issues. I might not agree with their stance, but could we get back to that? Can we just
because their message really gets swallowed up by the whole,
Exactly.
everything that's going on with Trump, which it's so egregious, so historic, so over the top. I get it.
Right.
But if this is an election, which it's supposed to be, then we need to care about what really matters, which are the issues that are, facing our country. And Trump is one of many. Although I think I'm going to coin your phrase. You heard Nikki Medoro say, indictments up the ass. That's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
The search is still going on in Maui for the bodies and the wreckage. And they're slowly finding people, slowly, in some cases, identifying people. And you knew it was going to be mostly residents, but also some tourists in that area. And indeed, a California woman has been identified as the first tourist falling victim to these deadly wildfires on Maui. She is 72-year-old Teresa Cook of Sacramento. She was staying at a hotel in Lahaina. She was supposed to fly home a day after the fire started. There have been 115 confirmed deaths, hundreds more unaccounted for. The number of people unaccounted for yesterday was, they said 800. Now it's 1,100. So more than 1,000 missing. And I know we're going to see many more deaths here, but yes, now the first tourist identified.
And they're also doing the high rises, the multifamily buildings, which includes apartment buildings and things like that. And so again, when you have one building that burned down, but multiple families and people that live there, look, it's going to skyrocket. This is devastating, and it's going to be a really hard number, I think, to swallow, of how many people lost their life.
I think devastating is really the word. It's healing. You saw it in Sonoma County after the deadly fires here. There were shirts that said Sonoma County strong, right?
Yeah.
And then you see in Maui strong, because you want to have people have faith in themselves and their ability to recover and their ability to withstand this horrible tragedy. But it's really hard to be strong when you have still more than 1,000 people missing, and this is bad. This is bad.
This is bad.
Results are expected today on a national vote whether to authorize a strike by UAW workers. This union, United Auto Workers, would strike if ongoing contract negotiations with Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors should fail. The current labor contract expires September 14th. So we'll see how this one goes.
So many strikes. And I think, we're going to start seeing resurgences of unions and everything, because they're realizing my boss, the CEOs aren't just going to give me better benefits and regular pay raises and all these things. They're going to milk every drop of blood out of me that they can get. I hope it does. The workers are strong. You have to stay together to get what you want.
It seems like, though, the strikes that have ended and the workers fought and did go out on strike and really, stuck it to the man, as they say, they're coming away with some big chunky raises.
That's what they want. That's what they want.
Families of 9/11 victims are protesting a possible plea deal for the confessed mastermind of the 2001 terror attacks and 4 other defendants. Let's get the load of this. They sent a letter to the White House this week asking President Biden to stop any potential deal for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 4 others being held at Guantanamo Bay. Family members say a possible plea deal avoids a trial, allows the United States to withhold information about Saudi Arabia's possible role in helping the hijackers. This is one of those cases where if politics seeps in over some horrible crime against America like September 11th, it's unconscionable. No.
Yeah, no. That's awful. No,
I'm glad the families are on top of it and sending letters. And we should all be, right?
Exactly.
No. An alliance of major studios, speaking of strikes, offering a new deal to Hollywood writers and hopes of ending a nearly 4-month-old strike. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers is proposing new terms to the Writers Guild of America that includes wage increases. The studios claim it's the highest in 35 years that they're offering now. The deal would also include some residual pay. I don't think that's going to be enough. And guarantee that written material produced by artificial intelligence will not be considered literary material.
Okay, because that was the whole thing. It's like you can give it once and then they could reuse it as much as they want to without paying you anymore, right?
Yeah. And I think this whole residual pay, the way it used to be and the way that it is now, and the accounting for how many streams, all that information, that proprietary so-called information, I think that's where the fight is going to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Lodged.
Because how do you, if I watch Schitt's Creek 15 million times,
right?
Does, Dan Levy get paid the same as he did if it was on TV every single time?
Right.
And that's the problem. It's now, do I think it should be, dollar to dollar? Maybe not, just because of how often you can stream. You don't have to wait for the TV to syndicate it, all those sorts of things. But they have to raise it more than pennies, because Netflix, Hulu, all that, they're making money.
Well, you
share the wealth.
You could argue that, but you could also argue that every time you click on something to stream it or watch it, it's a personal choice, and you are voting to pay for that and to give that person more money. I don't know. I just feel like, people should be rewarded for the popularity of their work. If it's really good, we're going to stream it more. We're going to share it with people. They're going to stream it. Word of mouth. We talk about it here. Like, what are you watching? What are you looking at? What do you, and so people share things, and that should be rewarded. I think that type of, oh, this is really good. People have figured out you've done really good work here.
Exactly.
I don't know. This is kind of interesting. Keeping tabs on India. They are making history on the moon. You see this story?
Really? No, I did not see this.
This morning, India became the first nation to land a spacecraft on the south pole of the moon. India is now only the fourth nation to ever land a spacecraft on the lunar surface, following the United States, Russia, and China. So welcome India to the moon party.
That doesn't actually surprise me. I'm like, why haven't they been on the moon? I mean, India, okay, good for them. I wonder what they're going to do out there.
Plant the Indian flag like we planted the American flag. They're on the South Pole, so they can claim that section, right? Okay.
Jesus. Can we not have borders on the moon, please? Can we just not and stop doing that, please? I don't want to go to war over the moon.
When we blow the earth up, or pollute it to the point of we've got a mass leave, get out.
Jeez, right?
All the countries will have their own little. I'm sorry. Oh, you didn't make it to the moon. Sorry, you can't colonize here. You see, all the flags are already up.
Yeah, they're already there.
Lastly, former Southern California running back Reggie Bush is set to announce that he is suing the NCAA this morning.
Ooh.
Why? Well, he is filing a defamation suit. He says, based on the NCAA maliciously attacking his character and damaging his reputation. The suit centers around the Heisman Trophy that he won in 2005 before having it revoked in 2010 after the NCAA investigator said he took cash, gifts, and his family lived rent-free in a San Diego area home. So, I mean, now I guess it's okay for college athletes to accept forms of what?
Yeah, the name, likeness, image thing. Remember, they had that whole suit, right?
I don't know
if they're able to do that.
Cash and gifts, but you can accept other things. I mean, I don't know. You can get some money for your.
I watched this whole thing on Johnny Manziel. I think it was on Hulu. You remember him, Mr. Football? Like he won the Heisman.
Yeah.
He was a freshman when he won it, and he totally choked. I think he went to the Browns, right? So apparently, this guy, the Johnny Manziel story is hilarious. If you guys get a chance to watch it, basically. This guy was a total frat boy that just happened to have natural talent in football. When he was drafted by the NFL, Kim, you want to know how much tape, like these football players, especially quarterbacks, watch tape to learn things about the team and their plays and everything. The time on his iPad, 0. He never watched any film. But the reason I bring it up is he was also caught in this because when he was in college, they were making a ton of money off of him because he made amazing plays, Mr. Football. And so him and his friend, who became like his agent or manager or whatever, they would go to Vegas and they would just sign a bunch of autographs and get paid buku bucks. And then they got caught and they made up this whole story about this money is coming from like my family being rich, which was total BS. Fascinating. But yeah, he just dropped out of the NFL because they dropped him because he did not want to be a football. He said, my fraternity was my football team. He just wanted to drink beer and have fun. And then he just was pretty good at football. But when he had to do it as a job, he's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
It's not as fun without the frat party in the background.
Well, it's not fun when like you actually have to work. He didn't want to do any of the actual work. He just was like, this isn't fun anymore. Like total frat boy, but whatever. There you go.
Okay. So I said that was going to be the last story, but I'm going to lob one more at you. Okay.
Go.
A Bay Area church is suing the state of California.
I know exactly what you're talking. You're talking about Calgary.
Yeah,
I drive by that church so many times. Oh my God.
Calvary Chapel in San Jose is accusing the state of California of spying on its congregants.
It wasn't hard.
Everything's online. I don't know what you want. The church has been ordered to pay $1.2 million fine for violating COVID protocols, including a ban on large gatherings. Remember, they refused to stop holding gatherings and singing and like spewing the COVID all over the church. They were like, no, we're going to do this anyway. And the more they did it, the more fines they racked up and the more they thumbed their nose at the government. And now they're pissed off. The church's lawsuit claims state officials secretly knew when worshipers attended church by using cell phone data to track their locations. The suit calls the alleged actions an overreach and a violation of the protections provided in the United States Constitution.
It wasn't hard. The news trucks were outside that freaking church during the height of COVID because everybody kept going to freaking church. Yep. It wasn't hard to track them when they were walking in the damn church. Now, again, I understand my parents go to church like a couple times a week. And, you know, I get it. And they had outdoor services. And I understand that if you can't go to worship, but you can go into some other businesses, you know, that were essential, that people would be very, very upset. Yeah. I don't think this lawsuit's going to go very far. I think, and I don't know this for sure, I'm wondering if it has to do, you know, the apps on your phone that tells you and notifies you if you've been in contact or close contact with someone with COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that has something to do with it because we were being tracked so very much at that point, but I don't know. I mean, they can obviously give it a shot. I just think that when you have a pandemic on your hands, and especially when you're pro-life, maybe we should just protect people a little bit more and understand that the church can be everywhere. But touchy topic.
It is a touchy topic.
You don't want to get into it.
Well, and I wonder. I mean, when I think of filing a lawsuit, I think, God, that's going to be really expensive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive to hire a lawyer and get all that stuff done. And this is a church. I get
they get a lot of money, donations.
Fancy church with a lot of money, but still, that's a big thing to file a lawsuit. I think they're trying to get out of their COVID fines, and I think they're gonna have to pay those fines no matter what. I don't know.
Yeah.
This show is indeed crowdfunded, which means we do rely on you. Please check us out at thenikkimedoroshow.com. The Patreon link is there. PayPal link is there. You'll also find the merchandise site there, as well as the podcast information if you want to listen to us instead of watch us like the old days of radio. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. We really appreciate it. I also appreciate this lady coming on with us regularly. And it's none other than former CPUC president Loretta Lynch talking about all things PG&E. Loretta, thank you so much. I know that you've been having some issues, but I'm so glad that we're finally able to get you back on.
Thank you for having me, Nikki.
I love it.
I feel like I can't have her on. I have to sing the song. Like I can't. It's not possible for me.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Loretta, love you better than an Irish setter. That's enough. But yeah.
Have you heard that song before, Loretta? I'm assuming.
Oh, yes, I have. Isn't that Tammy Wynette or somebody like that? I forget.
It is. Yeah, we used to play it every time she came on Pat Thurston's show.
Oh, is that what you did? Okay. I was like, I've never heard that song, but maybe I missed it every single time Loretta came on.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's so many headlines with PG&E right now. The one that I wanted to lead with, because I teased it, of course, Loretta, and obviously given what we've seen and the tragedy in Maui right now. Yeah. Talk a little bit about this debate going on about burying the lines, insulating the lines, and how much it's going to cost us, the ratepayer. Because is there a balance between these two where we're not going to end up with skyrocketing PG&E bills again and again and again?
Well, short answer is it's going to cost us way too much, because what PG&E does is for the benefit of PG&E's bottom line, not for the benefit of safety or its customers. So yes, there theoretically should be a balance, but that requires a neutral regulator who's actually going to follow the facts and develop the facts about when you should underground and when you should just tighten the wire. The problem here is PG&E has some very inexpensive quick fixes that don't make them much money. One of them is covering every conductor, which is essentially kind of like the on-off switch of a lamp, right? You can replace the whole lamp and tear out the wall and put one into a wall for a lot of money. That's what I call undergrounding. Or you could just replace the little chain that turns the lamp on and off, and that's a covered conductor. And what we know from other utilities who have covered their conductors is they have many fewer utility-caused fires. But that's not what PG&E is doing. Oh, the other thing that PG&E hasn't done is prevent line slap, which is basically the electrical line swaying in the wind, because it's not taut enough. So they need to make the lines tauter, and that is a very simple, inexpensive fix. And that way the line would not sway so much, would not hit trees, would not spark, would not hit other lines. But those two things don't bring PG&E profits. What brings PG&E profits are undergrounding, which is just ripping out all those lines and then putting them underground. That's the very most expensive and should only be used for the highest fire threat districts where there's not another option. The other thing that PG&E has done already is replaced all their wooden poles, those transmission line poles, with steel poles. Now, what we know from CAL FIRE is there has never been a wooden pole that was the cause of a utility-caused wildfire. But PG&E, just to great expense, billions of dollars we're paying them, has just replaced all the wooden poles with steel poles, or they're almost finished doing that. And now, after they've just pumped up their bottom line doing that, they want to now rip those steel poles down and underground the wire. It's like all they do is sit around a table coming up with more ways to charge us without actually looking at what actually makes us safer.
So what is, I know I'm going to say the CPUC should be doing something about that, but they're not, obviously.
Well, and the problem is the regulator is not a watchdog, it's a lapdog. Right. Why? Because the utilities have realized it's a whole lot cheaper to co-opt 3 regulators, because there's just 5 of them, so you only need 3 votes, than it is to actually do their job right. And so what we really need is the Attorney General to look into what should be done and what's going on here at the PUC. We really need the governor to rein in his PUC and require them to look at the facts and take a sharp pencil to PG&E's costs, because they don't. So PG&E submits these inflated, crazy budgets. First, let's change out all the poles, even though they are not the causes of the wildfires. Let's not change out all the conductors and just cover them with a cheap fix, even though they usually are the cause of the wildfires. Oh, and then, if that's not enough, let's underground a bunch of wires that don't need to be undergrounded. For instance, wildfires aren't happening in Berkeley or San Francisco, but that's some of the places they want to underground wires. Now, what we need to be doing is undergrounding only in those places at the urban wilderness interface, the suburban wilderness interface, where it's easy to do. We don't need to be undergrounding over the Sierras. That's prohibitively expensive. What we need to do there is cover the conductors and make sure those lines are taut. So basically, PG&E continues to waste our money. They cut down a bunch of trees they didn't need to, contributing to climate change. They changed out a bunch of poles they didn't need to, contributing to their bottom line. And now they've come up with this other cockamamie idea of undergrounding thousands of miles of electricity lines that they don't need to underground for safety. They're doing it to pump up their profits.
Well, when you say they're wasting our money, you really mean they're wasting our money. They're wasting the money that's in our bank account right now, our personal money. Because I'm reading this story that's saying the PG&E bills, our PG&E bills that we all pay every month, are going to go higher if the utility lands state approval for these rate proposals that include wide-ranging plans to bury the power lines. They want me to pay for that.
Yeah.
Oh, every penny that PG&E spends comes out of their customers' pockets. There's no mythical PG&E money that's not paid for by us. Even their profits are paid for by us. So PG&E, every cockamamie, expensive profiteering proposal that they get past the PUC is coming out of your pocketbook. And I don't know about you, but my rates have gone sky high already. I can't stand another 20 or 30% increase.
No.
And that's what's coming. And in fact, it's more than that.
Whoa. I mean, how do you even afford power then?
Exactly.
What about the penalty for PG&E? Because it seems, Loretta, like every time there's a fine, right? There's a fine, a penalty, they've done something wrong, or they have been remiss in putting power lines under, or making their safety things they should have been doing all along, that should come from the money that they had as profits, that they should somehow be forced to, I don't know, hurt a little bit.
Yes.
Instead of having to turn around and just charge us. Who's okay with that? Because I'm not okay with that.
Oh, but let's go to exactly that question, Kim, which is where do those profits come from? They come from you and me. And who sets the profit level? Our friends at the PUC. And what did they do just last year? They goosed PG&E's profits to over 10%, which puts them in the top 10% of utilities in the nation for how much profit they get. So what happens is it's just a shell game. Oh, yes, we're going to be very stern and say, PG&E, you did bad. You didn't follow our very lax laws. So the fine comes out of your profits. And in the back room, they're increasing the profits to pay for those fines. In fact, just last year, the PUC allowed all the California utilities to keep over $500 million in excess profits they earned during the pandemic. And these were admittedly excess profits. The utilities came in and said, yeah, we know in 2019, you said the profit level could only be here, and we over-earned, which means excess profits. Mm-hmm. But instead of giving them back, hey, the pandemic, can we just keep them? And the PUC said, yes. Sure. And so $500 million in admittedly excess profits, which should have gone back to the ratepayers during that very difficult time, gets to stay in the utilities' pockets. So they got plenty of money to pay those slap on the wrist fines, if they even get fined at all.
And I know that it's the voters that keep voting in Governor Newsom and those sorts of things. But I mean, Loretta, he has to hear these complaints. He has to hear the complaints about, obviously it's his CPUC. They're not actually regulating PG&E. Explain for people that don't understand what we can do. I mean, is there any pressure from what you're hearing on Newsom to stop this BS that's happening to PG&E ratepayers?
Well, the first thing we need to do is get the data, because a lot of the shenanigans that's happening at the PUC and a lot of the backroom deals that they're making with utilities are secret. They are not available to you as the press, and they're certainly not available to me as a customer. So what's interesting is Consumer Watchdog has a very mild, from my perspective, initiative for the 2024 ballot, which would basically bring the Public Records Act back to its original intent and not shield as much of the secrecy at the PUC that's been built up, layers and layers and layers of secrecy over the years. So the first thing I would suggest is everybody vote for the Consumer Watchdog initiative that makes sure that government can't keep secrets from the governed. And once that passes, then we will be able to see more of the shenanigans. And what we know is after San Bruno, some very intrepid reporters, including Jackson Vanderbecken at the Chronicle then, really dug and saw the collusion that was happening between PG&E and the PUC. And that led to some changes, and that led to some legal changes as well in terms of safety requirements. But the problem is you can have the best laws on the books, but if the regulators don't enforce them, then what good are they?
Exactly. Maria had a question. Can you please ask about East Bay Community Energy electrical generation changes that were added onto our PG&E bill? We can opt out, but nobody tells us. I don't know anything about that. I don't live in the East Bay.
Yeah.
So one of the changes to try to get people out from under PG&E, this was back from the energy crisis in the 2000s. In 2001, the legislature passed a bill called Community Choice Aggregation, or CCAs. And what that means is a community can create an entity that will buy the power, because the theory was that PG&E didn't care how much the power cost. They just passed it on to the ratepayers. And they also were buying a lot of dirty power, and some communities wanted cleaner power. So for instance, in San Francisco, and then also through the entire East Bay, and also in San Jose, there are these quasi-governmental entities called community choice aggregators, and they're the ones who buy the actual power. So they are the ones who are supposed to be buying the cleanest, cheapest power. And then PG&E has to use that power. So that's why that's on your bill. You can opt out and continue to have PG&E provide you the power. But if you do, you're going to get more fossil fuel and nuclear fueled power from PG&E than you will with your community choice aggregator. The problem there again is the PUC stacked the deck against these community choice aggregators, and they agreed with the utilities that they get to add on extra costs onto these community choice aggregators. So the utilities say, hey, well, we created a system as if we were going to be the only buyer. So you, community choice aggregator, have to pay for that system over time. It's essentially called the exit fee. And so they keep lathering on these heavy exit fees because it's cheaper for these nonprofits to buy the power than for PG&E to buy the power. So PG&E is trying to increase their costs so that it's not cheaper for them to buy the power and people will stick with the utility.
What do you think? Floyd brought it up and I wanted to talk to you about this as well. San Jose wanting to basically create its own. And correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm thinking San Jose wants to create something like SMUD, which is in Sacramento, the Sacramento Municipal Utility District up there. Would the idea in San Jose be similar to that? And would this be an answer to the problems that's caused by PG&E and the CPUC?
Well, if San Jose created something like SMUD, it would absolutely be the answer. Here's the deal. If we're going to spend more than 10 cents out of every single dollar just lining PG&E shareholders' pockets, that means our electricity is 10% more or more than it should be, period. Mm-hmm. And we already know that PG&E makes its choices based on its profit levels, not on what makes sense. So we know that the public utilities, the ones that are owned by local governments or local entities, are making choices based on safety and reliability because they don't have any profits to be looking out for. And so it's just cheaper across the nation, and certainly in California. It is cheaper and more reliable and safer to have public power provide your power rather than private power. It just is. So San Jose has come up with, folks in San Jose have come up with various ideas over time. I don't know specifically the idea that the writer is referring to, but it's very important that it has to be publicly owned to get out from under this profiteering pyramid. If it's not publicly owned and it's just one of these CCAs, then the PUC can always play regulatory games to disadvantage the city and advantage the utility. So we need to just say no. The problem here, though, is one of the first years that the governor was governor in 2020, he promoted and a bill was passed to basically make it harder for cities to take over from the private utility. Now, there's an effort in San Diego right now to municipalize SDG&E, and I hope that the San Jose effort really gains some traction. But it's going to be harder based on the current state law that, frankly, should be repealed.
I know it always comes down to money. Do you happen to offhandedly know how much PG&E has donated to Governor Gavin Newsom's campaigns over the years? I could estimate.
I don't know because there's donations and then there's charitable donations.
Okay.
And so these things called behested payments, where the utility donates to a charity or donates to a nonprofit, frankly, like his wife's nonprofit. And those can be much bigger amounts than a campaign contribution. And they donate at the behest of, or at the request or suggestion of, an elected official. And so those elected officials, each elected official is supposed to fill out a form called the behested payments form. And until recently, those forms were not filled out so thoroughly. But now that there's focus on them, they are filled out better. The problem here is, why should PG&E get a tax deduction for a charitable contribution that it makes because an elected official asked them to make it? I don't see that that's charitable. I see that that's business. They're doing that for a business purpose. And so if it's a business purpose, it's not a charitable deduction, and the IRS should investigate.
I'm so confused with Newsom because here's a guy who, he seems like he stands up for what's right. You look at what he did in San Francisco with same-sex marriage and how it was unpopular at the time. The Clintons came to town and they wouldn't even take a picture with him because he was standing up for what he believed in, and it wasn't like the politically correct thing to do at the time, right? And so here's a guy you think he tries so hard to, save Californians during COVID and do what's right, and he's there for people trying to make the right choices. And then you turn around and look at what's happening with him being in the pocket of PG&E, it seems to me. And it does not compute. Like it has to be about money. And I don't understand why he wouldn't do right by us here.
I don't either.
Well, Kim, I think that there are two parts to being a true progressive. One is an absolute commitment to civil rights. That's first and foremost. If we don't have civil rights and equality for all, then we don't have a democracy. But the second is an absolute commitment to economic rights. There's civil rights, and you can still be a corporatist Democrat. So that means you have to be committed to economic rights, and you have to be committed to economic fair play for everybody. And my concern, frankly, I'm a committed Democrat. You can see my the person who I have on my wall at home. I love that coat. And I am very happy to be represented by former Speaker Nancy Pelosi as my representative. But you need to have, I can see why some folks left the Democratic Party, because economically they were left behind. And they felt like, hey, you're not looking out for me and my pocketbook and my family. And I'm from the working class, and I know what it means if your electric bill goes up even 10%, much less the 23% that PG&E is going to get this year. That means you're not paying for something else. You may not be paying for back to school shoes. You may not be paying for meat. And that certainly was the reality in my family. And if we don't protect everybody's economic rights and take a sharp pencil to PG&E's costs and frankly, toss them out because they have lost the benefit of the doubt in their relentless profiteering that doesn't even keep us safe, right? And so until we have elected officials who are true progressives and care about both civil rights and economic rights, we will be in this precarious pickle.
What about solar being the answer for people that are just fed up with PG&E? I know we've talked about, them kind of taking the incentives away from people to put up solar. What's the latest with that?
Well, here we go. It's an all-out assault on rooftop solar at the PUC. Why? Because it loses PG&E money. And I'll be the first to say, I am a rooftop solar customer. I put solar on my roof in 2004 when I was still a commissioner. I was the first utility commissioner in the nation to go solar. And can I tell you how many problems I have had with PG&E in the last 20 years with my solar system? Because they don't like the fact that I can make my own solar. And so they make it very difficult, even for somebody as knowledgeable as me, to go solar. So the problem is solar is cheaper now and better. And also with the Inflation Reduction Act incentives, more accessible than ever. And those solar panels are being made in the United States. It's a win-win-win for our economy and our nation. So PG&E, what do? They run to their lapdogs and say, oh, please make it harder for people to go solar. Make it more expensive for people to go solar. Oh, and by the way, the PUC is soon going to vote on a proposed decision later this month on something that they call virtual net metering, which is going to eliminate the ability of schools, farms, and multifamily houses to install solar and batteries. Why? Because the more people who can get out of the system are going to as technology improves and the price comes down. But it's not just that. The PUC is not stopping at that. And this is with the full agreement of the legislature and the governor. There is a utility tax proposal that's percolating at the PUC. Which basically is going to increase utility bills for everybody because they're going to put a minimum monthly charge on your bill, no matter how much you use, which upends decades of how we charge for electricity. Yeah. The more you use, the more you pay. That incents conservation. It's better for everybody. We use less fossil fuels. No, we're not doing that. So it was snuck into a budget trailer bill in 2022, so last year, in AB 205, which requires the PUC to consider and propose a base utility tax. And so what that means is that everybody, except for the very lowest income people who already receive a 25% discount on their bills if they've signed up for the CARE program, everybody else is going to pay more for the same electricity. But especially, it's going to hit especially hard on people who are in apartments, condos, and small houses. So I don't know about you. I live in San Francisco. I have a 100 square foot house. Woohoo! Plenty big for me. I'm going to pay through the roof for no more power than I'm making today, except that it's going to enrich the utilities and it's going to disincent or it's going to discourage people from going solar. So at some point, the solar technology with battery technology is going to be good enough where people can just cut the cord, is what they say, and get off the utility service entirely. But that requires a lot of management of when you use power. But enough people are going to do that as the price becomes prohibitive. And then who's left? People who can't afford to do that. So the PUC right now, with PG&E's not just encouragement, but urging, is making it more and more difficult for people to go solar, more and more expensive for people to go solar, so that when the technology is perfected and we can all cut the cord, it will be harder for people who don't have the extra cash lying around to cut that cord. So talk about a captive customer. I'd call it a prisoner.
Yeah. I mean, and what is the, and as you're saying this, I feel like there's nothing we can do. I mean, besides protesting, I mean, when our electricity bills were skyrocketing, everyone was up in arms about it. And they gave us like a pittance in some sort of like refund, which was supposed to satisfy us, which obviously didn't. Loretta,
that's a one-time discount on a higher bill 12 months a year. Crazy. As if we wouldn't notice that.
But what do we do, Loretta? I mean, I know that like we can write our Congress people and write Sacramento and do all of these things. But, what is the nuts and bolts? Should we right now start putting solar on our homes? Should we look for the battery wall? What can we do? Because should we demand that more of Newsom to, clean out the CPUC, or I don't know, but I don't like to leave people in this kind of desperate, what the hell do we do kind of moment?
Well, right now, the legislature is back in session until September 14th, and there is an effort to repeal that provision of AB 205. It's called Public Utilities Code 739.9. And you should call and write your legislator and say, repeal Public Utilities Code 739.9, the extra utility tax, because it was snuck into a trailer bill. There was never a public hearing on it. And now the PUC is poised to do what the law tells it to do, which is put on a minimum bill. But that minimum is not going to be minimum. It's going to be hundreds of dollars, no matter how little you use. And so that needs to get repealed right now in the next 4 weeks, just period. But then the other thing is there are elections in California for your state legislators every 2 years. And so there's a big period of change here. I don't know if you noticed, but 39 new legislators out of 120 were elected in 2022. And that caused a lot of change, including a new speaker. And the great news for us here in Northern California is the new speaker, for the first time in a long time, is from Northern California. He's from Salinas and the Monterey area. So we need to make sure that your listeners in that area go to the new speaker and say, hey, why don't you have an oversight committee on the PUC? Why don't you have an oversight committee on the ISO? These rates are killing us, and we're not getting anything more for them. They're just pocketing the money and laughing all the way to the bank. So you, legislature, now somewhat newly constituted, commit to overseeing the PUC, because they can if they want to. And for all those folks who are running in 2024, there are seats all over the Bay Area that are coming up for election. Well, part of who you decide to support in those primaries should be based on how tough they're going to be against PG&E and the PUC.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the number one issue. You need power. I've seen a lot of people also in the comments talking about other utilities like water, right? They're just raising their rates. I love when I get things in the mail and they say, oh, there's a public hearing on a rate increase. And I go, has that ever ended in me not getting a rate increase? Because
No.
like it always happens. And we have it seems, I think the underlying thing is we feel like we have no power. Obviously, I know we need to keep the systems going. I know upgrades are necessary, but it never seems to align properly for people. And do you think that there's going to be, and I know that you were talking about how the CPUC is fighting against cities creating their own utilities, but I foresee that happening way before, PG&E or becoming publicly owned or something like that.
Well, creating their own utilities is publicly owned, right? Unless you're going to be essentially a microgrid. And I've considered that because we have an up and down duplex. So we have a unit below us and we have solar and we make more solar than we use. And we would love to give that solar to the people who live below us. But the PUC will not allow that.
It's so frustrating, Loretta.
Yeah.
And I feel like they waste so much money. There was another story that I was seeing where PG&E is not doing this tree trimming program. It spent $2 billion on it. And now is saying, nope, that wasn't very effective for preventing wildfires. So we're just going to stop it. I feel like what you were talking about, oversight, doesn't happen. And why would something as large as PG&E and the CPUC not have any sort of oversight, especially because we're such a huge state?
Well, and that is really where we went off the rails at the PUC. So the law is very clear. We've got some great laws on the books about having the PUC require only reasonable costs. And the PUC is supposed to decide what costs are reasonable through fact-based evidentiary hearings where the utilities are under oath and they have to show their costs. Oh, you say it's $1 million a mile to underground when SDG&E says it's $300,000 a mile to underground? How do you get to $1 million, PG&E? Yeah. Guess what? The pernicious and insidious erosion of due process has been happening at the PUC because the PUC is no longer requiring evidentiary hearings for most everything that needs evidentiary hearings. So if you don't have evidentiary hearings, if you don't have the utilities under oath having to show their work, right, and prove up their costs, then you get whatever the heck the utilities want as a cost and a rubber stamping lapdog as a PUC. So what we really need is to tighten up those laws about fact-based reasonable costs to require the PUC before they allow 1 penny of an extra cost or even any cost, because PG&E will say, oh, it's not extra. We're just replacing this cost with that cost. 1 penny of cost to go to the ratepayers to have a public evidentiary hearing where the utilities are under oath and they have to prove the actual costs. Why are we paying 3 times as much to underground a line in Northern California as they pay in Southern California? That's my number one question, right? Why? And why are we allowing PG&E to cut down a bunch of trees willy-nilly with out-of-state contractors that did a really poor job, but we keep pouring profits into PG&E? Why don't we say, no, if you do a bad job or you decide after the fact that that wasn't necessary, then that does come out of your profit. And the profit has to be static. It can be no more than, 50% of the profits of utilities across the nation. That'd bring profits down considerably in California because we're in the top 10%. It's crazy. But as long as we allow the regulators to do whatever the utilities want, why do we even have regulators?
We don't have regulators, obviously.
I'm stuck on something you said a couple minutes ago, which is that you want to share the power with the people below you, and you're prevented from doing it. And you know what's frustrating about that? I mean, that's frustrating in and of itself. But we're told from the governor's office, from, campaigns of public awareness, go solar. It's better for the environment. We're going to have electric cars. We're not going to sell any new electric cars in the state. Electric power, renewable energy. This is the way to go. So this is the message we're getting. But the reality is when you try to comply and when you try to do what they're saying is the right thing for the environment, you're slapped down and they say no, because it's PG&E won't get their money if you do that. So that's infuriating. I'm infuriated.
Oh, absolutely. And so I designed, we just upgraded our solar panels this year. Oh my goodness. You cannot imagine the bureaucratic hoops we had to jump through with PG&E. Just extraordinary. But I am committed to being, a carbon-free house if possible. And so we know, even here in San Francisco, that we can produce more solar than we're going to use, more electricity than we're going to use overall, right? Now, obviously, we still need PG&E's power for, at night when the sun doesn't shine. But as soon as we can, we will put a battery in. And so we will then store that. So what is PG&E doing? They are trying to change the rules about how a battery that I own can be charged and require me to discharge that battery into the grid so that I don't have enough power to be able to power my house overnight from the solar I use.
How is that fair?
It is extraordinary because they don't want people to cut the cord. They don't want people not to have to buy their extraordinarily expensive, overpriced power. They just don't want that because that's how they make money. And that's how they exist. But what we know is this. Study after study shows that 70 to 75% of California's entire load can be met with renewable power. So that's wind, solar, geothermal, and battery storage. And if we had more batteries and made them more rational, we could even up that amount. So California is not like Alaska or Montana in terms of its, sunshine or in terms of its snow. So we can go solar. We could. But the problem is it's one step forward in what the politicians introduce, and then it's 5 steps back in how the utilities and the PUC implement those laws. Mm-hmm. That's why we need to get commitments from newly elected officials that they will commit to overseeing the PUC and making sure that PUC is a watchdog and not a lapdog. And the first way we do that is sunshine. We need to see all the communications between the PUC and the utilities. And frankly, the PUC and the governor's office, right? Yeah. Because we need to know what used to happen when I was on the PUC is I wouldn't take illegal meetings with these utilities. So they would run to the governor's office, talk to the chief of staff, and then the chief of staff would call me. And I would say, I can't have this call because you're just telling me the talking points of PG&E. No, I'm sitting here as a judge and I can't just hear from one party. So one, we need to get back to, if we're going to have a regulator at all, we need to get back to the regulator being a watchdog and following the law, having evidentiary hearings where the utilities are under oath, making them prove their costs, and then making wise choices based on the facts. You can't have tree trimming and undergrounding and pole replacement and everything else because we can't afford that in our electric bills. But so that's why our electric bills are so high, because a lot of PG&E's experimentation, profiteering, and just throwing a dart on the wall and saying, hey, we could make money off of that. I bet the PUC to prove that all has to stop.
This might sound like a really dumb question because I don't have solar, so I don't have a battery wall. I also don't know how the whole system works. But I'm thinking this, if you had battery and you had solar, can you, Loretta, if you had all the battery and everything, can you unplug yourself from PG? And by that, I mean, you just stop paying your bill to PG&E. Could you still get power to your house?
Well, it's called cutting the cord. And it really means that PG&E cuts you off and you do not ever get one little bit of electricity from PG&E again.
But you could could you do that if you had a solar? So like a protest of California is like, we're going to get solar, we're going to get a battery, and then we're just not going to pay our freaking bill anymore. Could we do that?
Well, you would have to let PG&E know I'm not going to be your I'm not going to be your customer anymore. Yeah. And it may be that PG&E, I don't know, I need to look into this because I certainly intend to do that. It may be that PG&E has to come and make sure that your system is safe, or somebody has to come and make sure your system is safe so you don't blow your house up. Right. The problem here in San Francisco is because there's so many wood framed houses, and I have a wood framed house, we have a limit on how big the battery can be in San Francisco and where it can be. Of course. So I have to go build a concrete pad 20 feet from any structure in my backyard. and then put that battery on the concrete pad, and I can only have up to 20 kilowatts of a battery. And so I need about 24 kilowatts of a battery to actually cut the cord from what I can tell my usage is. We'll have to figure that out still. But the good news there is technology wins, because the reason for that is the lithium cobalt batteries, kind of like those Tesla cars or the Bolt, can explode under certain circumstances. You don't want that, right? Certainly not in San Francisco. But there's a new lithium phosphorus, I think, battery that doesn't do that. So as new battery technology is developed, and that new battery is on the market this year in 2023. So I'm waiting to see how those batteries work. And then I intend to buy a battery next year of the new kind, so that I can then hopefully go to the fire department and say, hey, these batteries are different and they don't explode. So can I have 2 of them, please? And not just 1 of them, so that I can cut the cord? But then the other thing to do is, there is a bill, I believe Senator Nancy Skinner has, to require electric cars to be bidirectional. Right now, a lot of electric cars can take power from your house, right? You can plug your car in and it can be charged from your house, but it can't give power back to your house. Well, if we could buy electric cars that are bidirectional, what that means is you could charge your car. It could be like a little mini battery. You could charge your car with your excess solar during the day, and then you could plug your car in and it could power your house at night. Win-win, right? And it's now technologically feasible to do that, but it's not required in California. So if we really want cars to be essentially little roaming batteries all over California, which they could be, we need bidirectional charging. But I am positive that with a bidirectional charging car, plus a battery that's a lithium phosphorus battery, not a lithium cobalt battery, in California or in San Francisco, with the amount of solar I have on my roof, I can cut the cord. That's my goal, because these charges that PG&E is charging are just outrageous, and they're unsustainable for our economy. What a drag on each and every family to have to pay for PG&E's mistakes, for their experiments, and for their profiteering.
Absolutely.
I'm going to need you, when you cut the cord with PG&E, to record that phone call. Hi, this is Loretta Lynch. I'd like to inform you I'll no longer be a PG&E customer.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you already. So we put this on in April, and PG&E took 90 days. They're only supposed to take 30 days. They took 90 days to approve it, with a bunch of BS reasons, let me tell you. So finally, because I have an excellent solar provider, Albion Power, right here in San Francisco, who really just ran this gauntlet with me, with PG&E, finally they approved it. But it turns out they are not tracking the power we're putting on the grid. So we just got a bill for $1,000. $984 last month. And that's with, you get a little thing on your phone. You can see how much power you're making. We gave back over, I think, 900 kilowatt hours to the grid, and they're charging us $1,000 as if we gave back 0. So here we are. So once PG&E approves it, they're not tracking the solar we're giving them, which means that they're overbuying, right? Because the solar is the solar. We can see it happening through this computer app, right? And so I personally believe they are tracking it and they are using it. But if they're not, through misfeasance or malfeasance, that means they're overbuying most likely fossil and nuclear to provide power to us as if we need it, when we don't, because we're giving power to the grid. Thank you, PG&E. So they can be completely incompetent, and it's going to take a formal complaint that I file at the PUC. Oh boy, bureaucratic level of hell number 7, to just get PG&E to track our power. And am I going to do that? Yeah. You know why? Because if people like if I don't do it, who's going to do it? Right. But they are just intent on making this as painful a transition to solar as possible.
It's so frustrating. Now, you mentioned before that in 4 weeks, this bill is going to be taken up, that this is what we need to, the 739.9 bill. Is that the bill that we need to write our state lawmaker about, right?
It's not at this point, I'm not sure they actually have a bill number, but it's the Public Utilities Code section 739.9, which was snuck into a trailer bill called AB 205 in 2022. And that section of the law needs to be repealed. And it would be within the next 4 weeks, so they could do it anytime. So there is a campaign right now to call your legislature and say, repeal the minimum utility tax and repeal Public Utilities Code section 739.9 before you break for the year on September 14th.
Okay,
Repeal
so
that.
I just want to make sure. So if I write my state lawmaker, I say AB 205 is what I want repealed, correct?
The section about the utility tax, AB 205 had thousands of provisions in it. And one of them was telling the PUC to put on this minimum bill requirement.
Minimum bill. Okay. Because I want to get this going, and I want to bring you back on when a decision is made.
Sure.
Because this is the one thing that we have to do now. I think like we always talk about all the things we need to do and, try to get solar, but this is going to have major implications if we don't do something about it, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Major implications.
Okay. So Loretta, we'll get you on. If you hear anything and there's an update that I miss, please let me know, because we need an update. But if there's anything more that we need to do, please let us know. I love having you on. I'd like to maybe do this once a month or whatever, because it seems like we're getting screwed every which way by this utility company, which again, I would love to cut the cord. I rent this house though. So many people rent. You don't have control of putting solar on your house. And so you're at the mercy of this utility that doesn't give a crap about any of us.
And even if your landlord wanted to put solar on, the PUC at their next meeting next week is poised to make it more difficult for your landlord to do that and share the profits with you. So if the landlord puts solar on, the problem is you're the one paying the electric bill. So the landlord doesn't see any benefit. So there's a proposal at the PUC to allow the landlord to communicate with their renters and say, hey, if I put solar on, I'm gonna get paid back for that investment through your electric bills. Does that work for you? And people can sign up for that. The PUC is poised to not allow that in their virtual net metering or VNEM proposed decision next week. So that will make landlords, and then also schools for some reason, because those are also in the same kind of customer category. It'll make it virtually impossible for landlords to do that unless they just want to take the expense and never get paid back for it. It's crazy.
And most of us wouldn't know this unless we heard it from your mouth. I adore you. I adore you. I learned so much. Part of me, I feel angry, but I know that I need the information. And so it's so valuable. I'm so grateful to have you here talking about all this stuff, Loretta Lynch.
Well, Kim, thank you so much. Ultimately, Nikki's right. It's all about following the money. Because if you've got a private utility whose purpose is to make money, guess what they do? They make money.
Yep.
And they'll make money every way they can. And the easiest way they can is to co-opt the regulator so that the regulator gives them everything they want. And the good news is the only input we have into that is through our elected officials. And so our elected officials control the regulator when PG&E is not controlling them. And so we got to make the elected officials care that our regulator is actually a tool of the regulated.
It seems like, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, it seems like the bills are so egregious. You mentioned a nearly $1,000 PG&E bill, and people who can't afford it are getting hit with like $500-600 a month. Is PG&E part of the reason that people are being priced out of California?
I think absolutely. Oh, here's another thing. You'll love this. So in September, the California Supreme Court is considering a case that is groundbreaking. Not surprisingly, back after the Second World War, the utilities got a provision in law that says if the PUC is considering something, you can't go to court about it. And so the PUC has all these kind of open dockets just to protect the utilities from court cases. So the PG&E wildfire victims said, hey, wait a minute, but the PUC can't impose damages. So here I'm damaged as a wildfire victim. I should be able to go to court in a tort claim. Well, PG&E says, oh, no, you have to bring your claim to the PUC, which of course will sit on it, do nothing, and not actually under law be able to award you damages. So this case is going up to the California Supreme Court in September. It's called Gantner versus PG&E. And a bunch of plaintiffs' lawyers representing PG&E wildfire victims are going to the California Supreme Court to say, hey, wait a minute, because the PUC cannot impose damages, you should allow any tort victim of the utility to go to court and have their day in court and prove PG&E's negligence.
Right.
And so soon, if the California Supreme Court at all follows the law, morality, and common sense, then this shield from court liability will be lifted, because I think it's misinterpreted as anything the PUC could ever possibly think about is protected from a court suit. It has to be something about, hey, the PUC made a rule and the utilities followed the rule, and so therefore you can't go to court to challenge the rule. You have to go to the PUC to challenge the rule. But that's not what this is about. This is about, hey, the PUC has an open docket about what the utilities should do on wildfires. And so therefore, no wildfire victim can ever have his day in court. Well, that's just ridiculous, right?
It is. Yeah.
And so watch Gantner versus PG&E. And I think that the California Supreme Court is poised to right a very, very big wrong that is happening to every single PG&E wildfire victim.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine the frustration of having to deal with that. I mean, you're going through so much problem. Just put solar on your house. Can you imagine if PG&E burned your damn house down and all the hoops that you would have to jump through with that? Loretta, I'd love to make this a regular thing. You're just a trove of so much knowledge and expertise and insight. And I appreciate you coming on each and every time. So we'll touch base in a couple of weeks. But again, if there is any update that I'm not aware of, please reach out to me, because we'll have you immediately back on.
Yeah.
Well, especially as soon as the California Supreme Court rules, let's talk about that, because that's a huge one. And we haven't talked about the fact that the courts are really the last bastion of equality and availability of remedies against the utilities when the other branches of government are not doing anything.
And when's that court case again? Do we have a date on that?
I think it's September 8th or 9th. It's September 8th in the California Supreme Court. It's called Gantner versus PG&E. And it's the biggest utility case that the California Supreme Court has taken in decades. Perfect. We'll get you on. We'll be following that closely. Again, everybody write about that minimum electricity bill. What is it? The trailer minimum utility tax, repeal the minimum utility tax, but it is the budget trailer bill AB 205, PU code section 739.9. That has to be repealed. I know already we've lost half the people because it's too complicated, which is what the utilities want. Exactly. It pisses me off so bad. They know we're going to hear too many numbers and letters, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm just going to pay the utility bill. We're not going to pay it because you have people like Loretta on our side. Loretta Lynch, thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye. Thanks for having me. Bye, guys. So much. I swear, I get so angry, and thank you. I disappeared for a second. For some reason, my sound went out. I get so angry, Kim, because I don't know about you. I feel helpless to these utility bills, right? I feel like they're about everything when they're duping us. Yes. And they think that we're not smart enough to pay attention. Yeah. And most of us don't. I mean, have you ever heard of half the stuff Loretta Lynch is telling us about? No. And unless she tells me about it. And when she tells you, you're like, they're doing what? They're doing how? Why? I know. And it's just the craziest thing that this is even acceptable to anyone. I don't understand. When you were gone, I asked her, is PG&E pricing us out of California? And she said, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, they are. They're part of the problem. They don't want people to live here, I guess. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I kept thinking, and Randy, you're right. It's just PG&E bashing, which is deserved, but the issue is the CPUC. True. I mean, it's all, honestly, yeah, you're right. They're supposed to oversee PG&E, and it's literally one and the same. But I was thinking that when she was talking, I was like, dude, I need to get out of this state. And I love my California. I know. But how do you stay here, especially if you're low income?
or low, you know what? Not even low income, because maybe sometimes you can get a break. Middle class people are not going to, and middle class is, you could be making 6 figures and not even be upper middle class, right?
Yeah.
So it's so expensive here, and I feel it's awful. And just to put Kim, PG&E is evil. Absolutely. And yes, we'll make it a monthly, if not sooner, to have Loretta in, because.
But I love what she said. She said, PG&E, when you allow a corporation and you give them the whole point of making money, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
That's their whole point. They're going to make money. And so Randy's right, that when he says it's the CPUC, because their job is to make sure we're getting a fair deal. The California Public Utilities Commission. These are people that, that
the governor appoints.
The governor appoints.
Pisses me off, Newsom. Yes.
We elected him, and they're supposed to protect us. And instead they're turning around and they're like, how else can we make PG&E money today?
I'm just so disappointed in Newsom. I think it is literally one of the most disappointing things. And I love that you brought up the fact that he seems to be on the right side of so many things.
It crushes me because he's been so good in so many other ways, but
and he sucks at this.
But why isn't he standing up for me? Why isn't he standing up for
He's
you?
A politician. That's why. Yeah, he might see the writing on the wall with certain, just like Loretta was saying, there's civil rights and there's economic rights, and Newsom is not protecting our economic rights. And it's BS. And I believe in protecting our civil rights, our reproductive rights. I do believe Newsom is on the right side of history with so many things, but the right side of California history with this nonsense, no, he is completely wrong. And I absolutely hate him.
In this one instance.
Exactly. It's just, it's so frustrating. And we need to figure out a way. I just feel like we need to get rid of PG&E. That's really what I think it is. We just need to. All right.
How do you do that though? When they own all the power lines in the state, they own everything. I mean, you can't.
Well, that's why I was talking about cutting the cord. That's why I was doing that's why I wanted, if I get the solar panels and I jump through all the hoops and I get the battery where I'm able to do it, I'm just not going to pay my friggin' bill anymore. Go ahead. I'm not paying that. Turn my lights off. I don't need your ass. Right? Like, nope. So again, we have to write our state lawmakers. Again, we have new people, 30-something new state legislators in Sacramento. We have a new speaker from Northern California, like Loretta said. And so we need to understand that this is an issue that we need to vote on. When people are running for office in whatever the next election, we need to be like, are you going to hold their feet to the fire? Because even if we are thinking about cutting the cord, right? It ain't happening now, and it's not happening for all of us. And it is going to impact our economy. Absolutely. We will figure out a way to hold Newsom or somebody accountable. All right. We have an interview coming up in a few minutes, but I want to get some more headlines in. Coming up, we're going to be speaking with 2 women, Alegre and Natascha. Okay. And they wrote a couple books about this. They have a podcast about this. But their company is called Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, Kim.
Ooh, I like that.
Your wildest dreams. Basically, what they write about is how to avoid burnout, especially if you're a working parent, which we know all about. But even if you're not a working parent, just burnout in general. How many people do you know that are burning it at both ends, right? And it just seems like this is just the way life needs to be. So they're going to come on. They'll share some of their stories. They'll give us some tips and tricks and things that we're probably not doing, Kim, to keep our sanity. So we'll have a little bit of a calming down. How do we get more zen in our lives, Kim? How do we do that? Because, when you're stressed out, it's hard, right?
I fell asleep last night in the middle of folding laundry in a chair. I fell asleep in a chair. I slept there all night in the chair.
Oh, no.
I'm so exhausted. I woke up at 7 this morning. I'm like, I fell asleep in a chair. This is not normal for me. This is
Did
weird.
Your husband not like, hey, wake up and come to bed? He didn't do that?
He was already asleep. He came out this morning. He's like, hey, what you doing in the chair? I'm like, I guess
sucks.
I slept here.
You must have been sore. Oh my God.
No, it's fine. But it's just one of those things where you're so tired. You're working, you're picking kids up from school. You're trying to get all the work done online.
Yeah.
And then, you're trying to fold laundry and you're trying to clean up a little around the house. So when people wake up, it's not a total pigsty. And then And then you're done. Your body is like,
done.
that's it.
And you fall asleep in a chair doing laundry.
She's done. Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
so I need this conversation.
yeah.
I need to hear what they're telling me.
Alegre and Natascha, they'll be joining us in a few minutes to talk about that. Click the thumbs up, guys, to show your support of the show. It's easy, it's free, and it helps us expand our reach on this here YouTube. And here is Kim with the news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Well, you know what's coming tonight.
Oh, what a great picture.
It's coming. It's coming tonight.
It's the conversation between two douches. There you go.
Former President Trump skipping tonight's Republican primary debate for an interview with Tucker Carlson. Trump's interview with the former Fox News host expected to be streamed at some point this evening. Meanwhile, 8 Republican candidates are expected to take the stage in Milwaukee, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and former Vice President Mike Pence. Meanwhile, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani on his way to Georgia to turn himself into authorities. Giuliani, former President Trump, and 17 others have been indicted on racketeering charges for allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 election. The former president's one-time personal attorney says he fought battles much bigger than the one he's facing in Georgia, and he says he is confident the case will turn out in his favor.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't think you're on the right side of history with this one, pal. I don't think so.
He drank the Kool-Aid and went off his rocker, man.
Yes, isn't that the truth? In California, gas prices in the Golden State surging to the highest point of the year. According to AAA, the average price of a gallon of regular gas in California, $5.26 yesterday.
Jeez,
that's up 10 cents over the last week, 37 cents over the last month. In Los Angeles County alone, the average price for regular, about $5.36. The national average is $3.85 a gallon. I laugh because it's so painful. Netflix, having a little bit of success, one could say. They are reporting very strong sign-up numbers despite their recent crackdown on password sharing. The streaming giant estimates more than 100 million households were sharing passwords with friends and family who weren't living with them. Wall Street analysts believe that could translate into 50 million new accounts for Netflix.
Wow. It's
a serious situation for this guy. He is an accused killer, and he has entered a plea in San Mateo County. It's Mark Steven Metchikoff pleading not guilty to murdering Clarabelle Estrella inside of her San Mateo apartment July 26th. The 39-year-old man is accused of recording video of the victim's very last moments alive, then uploading that gruesome video onto his Facebook page. Florida, yeah. A woman in Florida who was Facebook friends with Metchikoff alerted police about the disturbing video. Investigators say they are still looking through the evidence to establish a possible motive. Meanwhile, Metchikoff remains behind bails with no bail. Yeah.
Behind bars with no bail. That's what you meant to say.
That's right. Yeah, sorry. Flip-flopped over there.
Can you imagine? I mean, what would you do, Kim, if you were Facebook friends with somebody and then they posted something horrific like that?
911, pal.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's so disturbing. This guy's allegedly icky.
Allegedly, yeah, exactly.
This is a disturbing case. And the mom posted this picture on Facebook. So
my God, this story pisses me off so much. Go ahead. Sorry.
A Mississippi police officer who took part in the arrest and jailing of a 10-year-old boy who urinated in a parking lot while that officer is no longer employed with the department. Other officers involved will be disciplined over what happened here. This is Senatobia Police Chief Richard Chandler, who announced this in a Facebook post on Monday. He didn't specify whether the officer who left the department was fired or whether the officer quit or what type of discipline they would be facing. But the child's mom says that her son urinated behind her car while she was visiting a lawyer's office August 10th. Officers came, put him in a squad car, took him to the police station. I mean, really? This little boy
Look at
outrageous.
that little boy.
This little child. And his mom was in the office. What's he supposed to do? He has to pee.
He had to pee.
She says, don't leave the car area. I'm sorry. No, absolutely not. And what are they thinking to handcuff a child and take them away? Stop it.
And again, what are you showing this kid as far as interactions with law enforcement? And he's like, I did something that I don't know, children and adults have done before. I remember when Dylan, my son, I mean, he was much younger. I think he was probably 4. I remember we were driving home from Lake Tahoe. We stopped at a Starbucks because he said he had to pee. I opened the door. I'm next to this woman who's also getting out of her car. My son just literally did the same thing, walked behind the car and started peeing. I'm like, wait, we're going to go into Starbucks. But he had to go. And she just started laughing. It's just, give me a freaking break.
Kids, man, you can't hold them to the same rules. You just have to, you gotta go. A kid's gotta go. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Ugh.
And then you wonder, like, was it race? Is that what happened here?
Well, apparently the first cop wasn't going to arrest him, and then other cops showed up, and a cop's like, you got to take him to jail. I've been like, no, man, that's ridiculous. No, that's not happening.
Well, the poor decision-making skills of that police officer means he's now out of a police officer job. And whether he was allowed to quit or whether he was fired, we don't know. But we do know that other kids don't have to deal with this anymore as well. So next story about retail crime, because it's up in Walnut Creek. Police say while residential and auto burglaries are down, the city of Walnut Creek has seen an 18% uptick in commercial burglaries and shoplifting this year. Authorities say they're working on preventing these crimes, but it's important that businesses don't make themselves easy targets. They say get an alarm system, limit the quality of your cash on hand, have surveillance video. Yeah. Air quality advisory for the Bay Area extended through today because of smoke from wildfires in Northern California. There's a big one burning at the Oregon-California border. The Air District says people who smell smoke and see smoky skies, stay inside, keep your doors and windows closed. And lastly, there is a new study. Look at that dog in the ocean playing.
As my dog starts growling in the background. But go ahead.
There's a new study ranking the most expensive states in which to own a dog, and California is number 1. Congratulations to us yet again. According to the American Kennel Club, dog owners in California pay an average of $35,452 over the lifetime of their dog. The average lifespan of a dog, 11 years. Costs include upfront spaying or neutering, annual fees, health insurance, grooming, food, checkups, toys, boarding, emergency vet visits,
and vaccines. Love. Because we love our dogs more, Kim. That's why.
New York, the second most expensive place to own a dog. The cheapest state, Oklahoma, where dog owners pay just about $11,000 less than those in California. So there you go. This is the Nikki Medoro Show. I'm Kim McAllister.
Thank you so much, Kim. Yes, and please sign up to our Patreon, the NikkiMedoroShow.com, and click that thumbs up button to show your support of the show. So as you just heard, moments before Kim did the news, she fell asleep in her chair. Now, I would say that as working parents, I have fallen asleep in many, many places. I've fallen asleep in the car. I was literally waiting to pick my daughter up from school yesterday. And you know what I did? I brought a book with me, which is always a no-no. I just get
because your eyes kind of get tired.
But it's also because we don't stop. We don't stop, Kim. We do this show. You do 2 more shows doing news for that. And it just, between prep time, house care, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We burn it at both ends. We burned it when we worked in San Francisco. We're burning it when we're doing it here. Well, let's get some help. Are you ready? Are you ready to get
please.
some help?
Thank you. Bring me the help.
I would like to welcome to the Nikki Medoro Show, Alegre and Natascha, who create Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. Yeah. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Well,
I love the news pieces you covered.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we done just to give you guys a little bit of background. Kim and myself, we used to do a morning show in San Francisco on traditional radio. When it flipped formats, we moved it here. Yeah. But we used to do a morning show that started. What time we had to get there at like 5 o'clock in the morning, right? The show was on at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So we know early. We both are mothers of 2 young kids, and when I saw the show that you guys put on and the books that you guys write, I was like, this is right up our alley. So just to give a little bit of background, Natascha and Alegre have written 2 books. One's called Rock Your Morning, and another one's called 3, 2, 1, Done. And Alegre, let's start with you. What made you want to kind of, I guess, focus on helping other people? I'm assuming it's women, mothers and fathers, to kind of get, I don't know, their S together.
Well, it all happened very organically, right? I don't know about you, but I'm 49 and my life has kind of been like, that's not right. That's not quite right. Oh, this is getting warmer. Ding, ding, ding. I'm here. And Natascha and I recently discovered something called Ikigai, which I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a Japanese concept called a reason for being. And if I had known Ikigai earlier, and I don't know if it would have helped me because I don't know if I was self-reflective enough, but the Ikigai exercise is really helpful. Like when I map all the things I'm interested in onto Ikigai, BYWD is the obvious fit. But really it happened.
Can I stop you? How do you spell Ikigai? Just to let people know. I'm writing down notes.
Yeah, IKI, GAI. And once a week we do a live, and 2 or 3 weeks ago we talked all about Ikigai, and I gave my own twist on it because I feel like some of the interpretations are poor translations of Japanese or something. So you can watch it there. But really it started organically, which is a handful of years ago. Natascha said to me, Alegre, I don't understand how you homeschool your child, have your own business, and managed to spend a month in Oaxaca. And I said planning, because, that's just kind of how I think. And she said, well, I'm a good planner, but there's some things that I've been backburnering that you seem to be able to make progress on. And so I kind of informally was coaching her. And then I was also informally coaching a few other people. And what I realized doing that coaching was that it's not the tools that we need, right? Like I have a planner right in front of me that I'm looking at. I love a good planner, but what was missing was the thought process involved to figure out how to plan when life is constantly changing that people really needed. And so through coaching Natascha and some other people, I came up with a 6-step process. And by the way, I don't know if you're into Myers-Briggs, but I'm an ENFJ.
Okay.
And one of the defining characteristics of ENFJs is that we like to figure out systems and we want to know how to do things better and faster and more effectively. And that was it was interesting watching myself come up with this 6-step curriculum to help people learn how to be better planners so that they could respond to things. And I'll let Natascha tell her part of the story.
Yeah, Natascha, I want to hear, so obviously you've been working with Alegre, and now you literally work with Alegre.
Right.
Can we start with what do you think you were doing wrong? Like, what was going wrong that you're like, I'm looking at Alegre, she's doing something right. What were you doing wrong? Because I'm sure many of us can relate to that.
Yeah, it was just kind of like taking life as it came, right? So it was felt almost like I was constantly in emergency mode, you know what I mean? And, often as caregivers, quite honestly, the woman or the mom in a caregiving situation, whether it's for younger kids or old elderly parents or something, if an emergency comes up or some kind of unplanned thing comes up, we take on that load. Right. And so as the mom and so I was just taking life as it came. And like we mentioned, I'm great at planning contained events, like birthday parties. I'd have summits for my other businesses, that kind of thing. Anything that was contained, had a specific date, end date. I have a theater background, so it's always opening day. You know what I mean? I can always opening night. You know what I mean? So this kind of thought process of oh my gosh, there's a hard, fast deadline, and you better get it together by then. That was fine, but then you're constantly I feel like I'm running on adrenal fatigue. You know what I mean? Just kind of taking life as it came. So that's what I was doing wrong. I was just kind of taking things, day by day as they would come up, as opposed to kind of having a longer, just a longer vision, just seeing a bigger or longer end game. And quite honestly, Alegre and I, we're in a stage right now where our kids are a little bit older. They're finally in the double digits. You know what I mean? So this is not necessarily a thing for you got a brand new infant, you know what I mean? Or something like that. And you're trying to balance your work. And we were in a slightly different area of where I finally felt like I could come up for air. I wasn't wiping butts every day. And I was like, what's happening? And I just felt like I was just kind of on my back foot, backpedaling, or like Alegre said, I was taking the things that maybe I was I was wanting to accomplish, and just continuously backburnering it because, you know, things are coming up. Oh, I set this time for myself to, you know, explore how to, I don't know, create a blog or whatever. Let's just say, right? Oh, but the kids just spilled milk and the dog is, you know, that kind of stuff. So Alegre really kind of helped me see where those areas where you could put in a plan, where you could go ahead and carve out some time, and how important that was. Because that's the other thing too, is quite honestly like a shift in mindset too, where everybody else's needs are more important than mine in those moments.
Yeah, that's typical.
It's a shift in mindset, really more so than, honestly, that probably is the most important thing. First is just like, and I was just speaking with Alegre. It's not so much like we're on this journey with our students. We're on this journey with the people who are taking our courses with them. Cause like, I am certainly not perfect at, you know, putting myself first or putting my own self-care.
Which is very typical of moms, right? It's like everybody else's needs before our own. And I mean, Kim and I, we both have kids in the double digits, but you know, it might be better than wiping butts, but then you have a million different schedules, not just your schedule, not just your partner, if you have one schedule.
Activities.
Activities is what drives me nuts.
You're going to karate. You're going to piano lessons.
It's an A schedule this day and it's a B schedule this day. And then I get an orthodontist appointment over there. And it's hard. So let's get into the nuts and bolts. What are the 6 things, Alegre, that people should keep in mind to get their life, I guess, under control and not the day-to-day kind of craziness?
So the 6 steps, we outline those in our course, Harness the Power of Planning. And I don't know that I can explain them here in this format, but let me just back up a little bit, because our 2 books, right, Rock Your Morning and 3, 2, 1, Done, we talk about similar concepts, but these are sprints versus marathons, right? Harness the Power of Planning is about life, living an intentional life by design rather than by accident. Rock Your Morning is about an intentional morning. So it's similar skills, but it's just a much shorter race, if you will. And then same thing with 3, 2, 1, Done. This is all about productivity for your, you know, to-do lists. But we talk about things like, time blocking, which is an amazing skill. And it's something that you use to, you know, design your life beyond your wildest dreams. But we use it in the smaller format, right, of an activity list. So let me just explain one thing. I just want to say that, you know, in Western culture, moms, we're kind of encouraged to sacrifice ourselves on the altars of our families. You know, we're kind of applauded, like, oh, look at that mom, and she gave so much.
Not applauded enough, in my opinion, but yeah.
Are you saying there's some other way to do it besides that? I mean, there's
yes,
really.
Yeah,
I had never considered this.
Seriously, it's right. So it's a total just now kind of coming out of this fog of like, I need to be super mom to get it all done. And then there is a lot of praise for that too, right? For being super mom.
Yeah.
But like the shift of like, I'm like, but in order to be super mom, my alter ego, the who I am has gotten to be, you know, like sacrificed, like Alegre said, you know.
Well, and the thing is right, is that it leads to you just end up super unhealthy, and
mad.
Yes. Or resentful. That's what we say. You're either unhealthy or you're resentful. Neither are nice places to be, right? You don't want to hate your family. And I feel like that's something we don't talk about. Like moms don't hate.
When they have to do everything they do. When I get pissed off because I had to clean the kitchen again because nobody can put anything away but me, apparently. Yes.
Exactly. Or just super unhealthy. I mean, 2 books that I read recently that I think every woman needs to read is XX Brain, which is about the fact that women are diagnosed with Alzheimer's at a 2-to-1 ratio as men, and we're more likely to get Alzheimer's than breast cancer, and Outlive, which is about living a quality life, not just a long life. And both of them point to women and hormones and lack of sleep as major drivers for Alzheimer's and general poor health. And honestly, it's really those 2 books will scare you straight, if you will, right? They're gonna be like, damn it, kids, I need to sleep because you don't want to take care of me when I have Alzheimer's. Okay.
Yeah, I thought you were going to mention Pay Up, the other book, Pay Up, which really talks about like also just the unsustainability of American motherhood and how society really has been, you know, riding on the backs of
free labor,
the free labor and the catch-all of all of these different, social safety nets. Basically, the mom is like this social, XX brain, excellent book.
The time blocking,
yes.
I find very interesting. I tried to do this a few years ago where I was telling my husband, we waste so much time. I think all of us waste so much time. And I give myself an excuse for wasting time. Oh, I've been working nonstop since I woke up this morning, getting the kids to school, putting on this daily show, editing whatever I need to do, prepping for tomorrow's show, that I deserve to sit on my chair and scroll social media or veg out on whatever. But then I'm also feeling like, God, I didn't do anything today, right? Like I didn't do anything I wanted to do beyond work and kids. What are the best ways of time block? Can we just kind of talk about that?
Let's talk about
finding out how to plug things in that we want to do.
Let's give you a little, basically a mini course of 3, 2, 1 done. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So we go through the 3 mistakes. So mistake number 1 that everyone makes when it comes to your to-do list is, we have our whole shtick, Natascha.
is putting on every single thing that you absolutely have to do that day. And I'm talking about and this used to be me, and maybe this is you, and all of these mistakes, I've made them a million times over, where it's like, oh, I'm going to make my to-do list. I'm going to put down, the thing that I want to do, write an entry for my newsletter, and brush my teeth and walk the dog, and things that I'm going to do anyway, things that I'm absolutely going to do anyway, because it feels good, right?
To cross
to
it off.
write that down. Yeah, exactly. I would even put things down that I had already done. If I had already done,
that counts.
I would put it down because hey, it needed to get done and it got done, right? And
making list.
Why
done.
Can't you have credit for those things you've already accomplished?
Okay,
Come on.
that's a great question, Kim. Great question.
I'm going to go grab an example over here. Go ahead. Yes.
So great question. So here's the thing. When you write your to-do list, it feels good because you're getting a hit of dopamine. We're huge brain science nerds. We bring everything back to the brain science. And that dopamine can be counterproductive because you're like, wow, look at how much I accomplished. I'm just going to sit back now and not do anything else.
And you don't get to sitting down and writing the chapter of your book or, or researching how, whatever it is that you're looking, the bigger picture goal stuff, because you're just flooded with dopamine. You're like, you can't stop patting yourself on the back and you feel like you've accomplished something. But when it gets down to it, that dopamine flood has then made you feel like you've gotten a lot done. And so that first mistake of putting everything down. So we really recommend that you don't put anything down that you're going to do regularly. I'm going to walk the dog because the dog has to poop. So it's going to happen. You know what I mean? That's going to happen. And if I don't do it, he's going to come over and let me know, or I'm going to have to clean up poop in the living room. So then that doesn't go on my to-do list anymore. Plus the other thing, aside from the dopamine hit, if you go ahead and put every single thing down too, it can be counterproductive in another way where it just feels overwhelming. You're like, oh my God, I have 50 things to do today, right?
Right.
It's a third or 2/3 of that are things that you're already going to do, or it takes 2 minutes or less, right?
Right. So here's what a list might look like, right? Totally random. Thank you cards, walk the dog, whatever. But if you don't put on anything that you're going to do regularly, and you don't put on anything that takes 2 minutes or less, that's the 2-minute rule, which some other productivity expert came up with decades ago, which is if it takes 2 minutes or less, just do it. Because it's going to take you more time to write it down and remember to do it than to just do it. So for instance, on this list, I need to confirm a hair appointment, right? That's just a text. I just need to send a simple text that takes less than 2 minutes. So you see, this is what the list looks like once you remove everything that is regularly or 2 minutes. You see it's in half. And that is a lot more doable list, right? You just feel calmer, like, oh my gosh, I don't have that much to do. And you haven't flooded your brain with dopamine, which can be addictive, by the way, where people are.
We're seeking that, right? We're seeking
why social media and the likes and everything are so powerful when we spend too much time on it. Yeah.
So then mistake number 2 is randomly tackling your to-dos, right? You write these random lists, and if you go from writing that thank you card to Carolyn to painting the kitchen cabinets, that's going to be a really random day. Okay. So tip number 2 is to identify shallow versus deep tasks. Okay. And we define deep and shallow as a deep task is tasks that are mentally intense, require focused attention, or have critical deadlines. Shallow are tasks that don't require you to be focused, aren't time sensitive, or even tasks that you consider relaxing, right? So when you go through that list and you identify deep versus shallow, you see there's only 2 deep tasks on here. So once again, you think, oh, this actually not that hard a list. I only have 2 things I really need to focus on. The rest of the things are fun or kind of mindless things. Okay. And so the deep and shallow is really where time blocking then comes in, right? So tip number 3 is not making time or thinking, oh, I'll just fit it in somewhere. You're never going to fit it in anywhere. You need to fit it in when you look at the list and you say, this is shallow. I have a shallow period right after lunch on Monday at 12:30. I'm writing it into my planner at that time.
Right. So I have an example of our, and now hopefully you can see it here. I'm not sure. This is like an example of our sample daily time blocking sheet. Okay. So you can see how, like, I haven't filled this in because I literally just printed it up just for an example here, but like you can put in your to-dos here and then you can literally block out times over here, right? So this doesn't look too different than like a Google Calendar, right? But maybe in your Google Calendar, you're not going to, you can absolutely use your Google Calendar in this same way. But for me, so you may have a planner and you can time block in your planner, but for like this Saturday, we have a home project that needs to get done. If I don't time block my Saturday, it's going to be 3 p.m. before everybody kind of like, and I'll randomly do something here and I'll randomly do something there and I'll try to get everybody on board, or, you know, like mostly it's going to be, we're going to need to purge a bunch of stuff before we can go into the next phase of this home project. We're, you know, doing a little home remodel thing. If I don't time block that day, if I don't go 10 to, you know, like, I don't know, 9 to 9:30 breakfast, blah, blah, blah. If I don't put that in here, that day is, next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock and it's like, where has the day gone? And maybe I've gotten a few things done here and there. And it's not so much about like being on schedule. You must be on schedule. But, you know, there's a thing at 3 o'clock on Saturday that I have to do. So I need to build a time block around it. When I time block my day, it's not so much about like, again, being on schedule as much as it is going like, here is the allotted time I have.
It's about making time for things.
Right.
Yeah.
That's mistake number 3 is not making the time for it. So yes, it's on the to-do list, but does it take 90 minutes or does it take 30 minutes?
Right.
Or 2 hours plus time blocking in breaks too.
So you see, when you're done with that to-do list, you know what's deep and shallow and you've assigned a day and a time for things. And some things might require multiple days, right? Like for instance, when you're working on an automation is when you sign up for an email list and you automatically start getting emails. That takes multiple days. And honestly, you need time in between it to let your brain rest and look at it with new eyes. So for that, I built in, I'm doing it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. until it's done, right? It's ongoing. The other thing too, is we recommend that people find out what their chronotype is, which a chronotype is, and maybe Natascha, I don't know if you can find the URL for the chronotype quiz, but a chronotype, there are basically 4 different types. And while you can switch around during your lifetime, for most of your adult years, you're one chronotype. And I'm the lion chronotype, which means I wake up early and I'm best in the morning. And then I kind of peter out as the day goes on. That can help you determine when you're most creative for your deep work. Right. So for instance, I do my deep work. I always schedule my deep work early in the morning because that's the best time. I can write 3 times faster in the morning than I write at night. Why would I spend 3 hours on something that I can do at 1 hour in the morning? So 3, 2, 1 done is about being strategic with your to-do list, approaching it with a framework rather than, I don't know, I'll just fit it in whenever I can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what so many of us do, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't even have a to-do list. I mean, you guys are going to be shocked at my utter disorganization. It's in my head. I kind of lay it at night before I go to sleep. That's if I don't fall asleep in a chair like last night. But I lay in bed and I think, okay, and it's a day-by-day thing. Like I can only take one day at a time. Otherwise, it's too overwhelming. So it's like, okay, what are the things I have to do tomorrow? Okay, tomorrow's day, piano day after school. Tomorrow's this. So it's a mental checklist of all the things I have. But the way you're talking about doing it is like, you guys are going to whip me into shape. I'm going to have so much time to do everything.
There
Crazy.
you
go. Honestly, so we talk about like often people think, oh wow, so now you have to be a really big taskmaster. It's not about that per se. It really is about, like, for me personally, if I'm like you, like I sometimes like to plan forward, as I said earlier. If it's got a hard deadline, I'm all about it. But if I don't, for me, it just rolls around in my brain and just causes so much conflama in there if I don't write it down. So
is that a technical term, conflama?
So, yeah. It sounds exactly what it is, you know.
One of the symptoms of menopause, just fully in it. If I don't, I like to say that, like, when we put it on the to-do list, it puts it in space. It takes it out of my brain and puts it in space for me. And then when I take that and time block it, it puts it in time. So the task is in time and space. Yep. And I am 10 times more likely to get it done. Because the other thing I would do with these times, because I was always a list maker, because like I am so afraid I'm going to forget stuff, because I just am, my brain's differently wired. And I can have a thought, and then 30 seconds later, I'll be like, what was that? You know what I mean? Like, so I really am like shiny object, you know? Yeah. So if I am, so this is a little caveat too about the 2-minute rule. A lot of times I'll be in with a client and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I have to book that airline ticket, and I have to write it down. So like, I do write down things that take less than 2 minutes, only because if I do not write it down, it just leaves existence, and a week go by and I'll be like, did I ever do that thing? So that's the little caveat with the 2-minute. But then as soon as I have time to do it, just get it done.
Get it done. Yeah. And I think that's the most important message is that we need to really, you know, prioritize not only our tasks so we know when to get them done, and like the deep and the shallow, like you were saying, but prioritize ourselves. Natascha and Alegre, again, here are their books. Check them out. Rock Your Morning. 3 simple steps to take control of your morning. Also, 3, 2, 1, done. 3 simple strategies to get your to-do list done. I'm going to be checking out XX Brain, Outlive, and Pay Up. And Ikigai. I got to look up Ikigai right when we get off there right now. We're going to look that up. I appreciate you ladies coming on with us. I'd love to have you back on with more tips and tricks, because I know so many people that watch our show are running out of time in the day. Kim, clearly, we always run out of time.
I'm in need of major assistance. It's true. So thank you for coming to help me.
Thank you guys so much. Alegre and Natascha. Again, it's BYW Dreams, Beyond Your Wildest Dreams.com. I put it in the show notes, so you guys just need to click there and you'll get the link. And I appreciate you ladies coming on. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Have a great day. Nice grand day. Yeah, they're awesome. Right? So, okay, everybody put their to-do lists on and get that going.
Okay, I'm making a list today. I'm going to try to get some things done, because it's been like...
Don't fall asleep in your chair at the top of the list. Don't fall asleep
this pile of stuff in the corner I meant to get to, and like 4 days later, that pile's still there. So
exactly. Real quickly, I want to give some thank yous. Marilyn gave us a $20 super sticker.
So nice.
Thank you, Marilyn, so much. Along with Mary, who gave us a $10 super sticker. Harry starting us off with that $5 super sticker. Great show today. We didn't get to anything beyond the headlines, PG&E, and getting our ass in gear. But tomorrow, another great day. We're going to follow the debate tonight. Chip Franklin's going to join us. Brian Copeland's going to join us tomorrow. So we have a great show for tomorrow as well. So you won't want to miss a moment of that. Please click the thumbs up button before the show ends. Go to thenikkimedoroshow.com and sign up for our monthly Patreon. It really helps us keep the lights on. Put it on your to-do list for today. Right at the top. Right there. All right, guys. We'll talk tomorrow. Bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're proud, like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.